All right, I'm back after a long weekend. We just got finished celebrating Memorial Day here in the United States, which is a holiday where we take a moment to pay respects and reverence to our war dead, people who have fought in the military for the United States and who have been killed in action and who have passed during their service. So, if you're not from our country, we celebrate generally with barbecues, cookout. You have a party outside, generally by the pool. Today for family. It's a day to pause and reflect. Um, so we are back to work today on a Tuesday. And I've been reading this book that I find pretty interesting. It's called Face Value by Ron Powers. This is about a TV station that creates a politician out of nowhere. They find him sort of as they find the young man who is a sort of amateur comic, and they decide that there's something about him that is very special. And I haven't gotten too far in this book yet, but it's been really good so far. It was written it was published in 1979. And I guess this was Ron Powers' debut novel. I'll read the Dust Jacket description. It says, Robert Sheen's meteoric rise took political America by surprise. It shouldn't have. He was the ideal candidate. Television hadn't made him so much as it had literally turned him on. A stand-up comedian who became a standout flag waver. In this brilliant first novel, one of the most extraordinary fiction debuts of the decade, Ron Power takes up where Network left off, with a taut, suspenseful, wickedly funny, devastating, serious novel of television power and the politics of manipulation. Circling Robert Sheen are his creators and his victims, one of the most dazzling cast of characters ever assembled in a fictional TV studio. Mark Teller, the tough, acerbic journalist whose original discovery of Sheen changed his life and nearly ended it. Jennifer Blade and Elizabeth Scott, two bright, ambitious newscasters who each choose to play a man's game in very different feminine ways. The legendary Colonel Eddie Donovan running his network like the soldier he still was, and fighting a war even he dared not declare. Mal Bookmaster, the shadowy Beverly Hills impresario who would orchestrate a spontaneous incident as easily as he could promote a glittering nightclub act. And Robert Sheen himself, the ultimate prepackaged celebrity, the man whose only talent was his ability to be the mirror of America's needs, wishes, and fantasies. So obviously this is a book long before its time. Almost every presidential candidate we get now, and from here on out, will be a product of the media that makes him. And you can see it not only with the current president, but with members of both parties being made, not first as doctors, lawyers, teachers, community leaders, but as personalities, podcast hosts, sports talk hosts, news hosts. This is the new way, and it looks like Ron Powers in 1979 had it pegged. The TV station in the book is run by this Colonel Eddie Donovan, who is the son of a IRA gun runner, committed Irish revolutionary, who is sort of a maverick as a child, hops on early in the radio craze, sort of as a hobbyist, begins to have his own radio show, starts buying up stations, builds the empire that way, and then he builds it into a very what would be like a very conservative sort of Fox News type station, where he hits pretty hard on specific demographics to build his news conglomerate. So I'm really enjoying this so far. The Sheen character hasn't really come out of its shell yet. We're just starting to see the makings of this great Robert Sheen, who is to become this great politician. The two lead women, as you could see in that description, this is a very 70s book. These two women playing in a man's world in their own way, in their own feminine way. The description of the women in this book can be cheesy at times. A whole lot of description of the women's bodies for no reason. So it's a very 70s book. And speaking of the 70s, now I was not around for the 70s. I was born in the mid-90s. But I do have a good friend who wrote a very interesting memoir about living in the 70s. And that is No Rules by Sharon Duquette. This is a book that you didn't know you needed to read. I met Sharon through a writer's support group, sort of a mutual aid discussion group that met a couple times a week over the course of years. And I've met her in person now, and I've read her book, and I am reading her newest work. But her memoir is fascinating. This is the story of her life running away from home at the age of 16. And I'll just read the back. It says, in this coming-of-age memoir, Sharon takes you on her nail-biting adventure through the early 70s after leaving her sheltered home at 16 years old to join the hippies. Yearning for freedom, she lands in an adult world for which she is unprepared and must learn quickly in order to survive. As Sharon navigates the U.S. and Canada, whether by hitchhiking, bicycle, or on the back of a motorcycle, she experiences love and heartbreak, discovers who she can and cannot trust, and awakens to the women's liberation movement while living in a rural, off-grid commune. In this colorful memoir, she reflects upon the changes that reshaped her during that decade and how the ways in which she and her peers threw off the rules meant to keep women in their place has transformed and empowered the lives of girls and women today. This is available on Amazon. It's available on Sharon's website. I'll go ahead and link it below. Sharon's the real deal. I would highly suggest this memoir. Even if you're not into 70s culture, even if you're not into women's literature, this is a super interesting story. And that is coming from a guy who has no problem telling indie authors that their books are not very good. So that is No Rules by Sharon Duquette.